The divisional previews are brought to you by Chinook Seedery, the best seeds ever. Use our promo code Coach's Sons Pod at checkout to get 10% off. On to the show.
Hit it.
Welcome to the Coach's Sons Podcast. My name is Andrew.
And I'm Chris.
And this is the division preview series. This time, we're going to talk about my favorite division, the NL East. Chris, I'm excited. We all know why, but we're trying to not be too high on the fandom right now. We're trying to get out of our, let's say, echo chambers and listen to other people's opinions. But before we get to everybody else, let's talk amongst ourselves. Who do we think is going to finish first? Who do we think is going to finish last? And who do we think is going to be the MVP of this division? Whether it's, an MVP candidate, Rookie of the Year candidate, Cy Young, whatever that looks like, pick one player. So, Chris, I'll let you start. We all know.
I'm pretty sure I know where you're going with it.
Yeah, partials. So let's go.
So I'll start with worst. I'm going to go last place, Marlins.
Seems to be easy. Yeah,
I think
let's get that out of the way. Marlins are last. We both agree.
Marlins are last.
Yes.
Not going to spend a ton of time on my end. We do have a pretty good submission, so I do want to hear what that says and how I can be, swayed a little bit. But sure. Regardless of what is said, I still don't think it's going to get that much better. So Marlins are last. First, if I'm being frank, I really don't know where to go. And I think I'm going to pick the Phillies. I don't see how, they didn't really get that. They didn't really get worse. They didn't get a ton better. They did add Luzardo. They did add Max Kepler, who's going to provide more help outfield-wise. Defensively, DH, that whole 9 yard. Well, Shorebro DH, but you get my point. I think it's close, and I can be convinced otherwise. I'm ready to try to be, but right now I just don't see how it's anybody other than the Braves. I'll throw out, other than the Braves. Good Lord, other than the Phillies. Excuse me. Philadelphia Phillies are
It's a Freudian slip. I'll give it to you.
Yeah, that's fair. They're my pick as of right now. As far as MVP, if I'm going with best player of the division, I have to go with Bryce Harper just based on the Phillies.
Really?
I do think Soto is high up on that list, but I don't think he's going to put up the power numbers that we saw in Yankee Stadium.
Correct.
I think all of his other outlying numbers will be there because he's Juan Soto and he's done it everywhere.
Yep.
However, the power numbers will decrease, so the counting numbers won't look as good to everybody else looking. I think best pitcher right now. Right now he has been for years. It's Zach Wheeler. Mm-hmm. The Mets don't really have that ace that scares me. The Braves have Strider, but I don't think he's ready yet.
Yep. Don't discount Cy Young winner Chris Sale.
I'm going to because for the sake of this argument, he's a top 3 pitcher in the division. Zach Wheeler's better. Longevity wise, and as of right now, Zach Wheeler is better.
Well, except for last year when Sale was better.
He's a better pitcher.
Okay,
so
sure.
Zach Wheeler, it's a very Phillies heavy. I think Soto can be up there, but that's where I'm at. So go ahead and not surprise any of us with what you have to say.
Okay, so I think the Marlins are going to be the bottom feeders, which we already pointed out. Look, the Nats have not been good, but the Nats have a lot of young talent that I think we'll hear about, and they have something to be excited about. Not now, but in the future. I think this team can be a lot better. So I expect the Nats to be kind of. I think they'll be a little frisky, but I don't think they're going to be a threat. Right? It's a 3-horse race.
Not
it's
yet.
The Braves, It's the Phillies, and it's the Mets. End of story. I can't believe in the Mets because it's the Mets. Now they had a darling run last year. Good for them. But perennially, they find ways to blow up. And so I am just going to expect that to happen. The Phillies, to me, are the team to beat in the division for sure. However, and I know to no one's surprise, I do think this is the Braves' division to lose because we're going to be back at full strength. This team, again, continues to be overlooked how good we were in 2023. This team is back. plus, Profar, right, is coming back now. I know he got hurt, but he's expected to be there at spring training. We got a little younger. We got some arms. The arms have really like Schwellenbacher. We've got some really good guys that have come up. I think that this team, asterisks, if we stay healthy after last year, I'm afraid. Like, I know we decided not to talk about that, but I am hurt. Okay, I'm hurt. I'm scarred.
You should be.
I'm afraid of injuries. Right. So if we're healthy, I think we're the team to beat because I do think that this offense is potent. This rotation is good. I think we have the pieces in the bullpen to continue to close games out. The Braves are going to win the division. It's not going to be fun or easy. It's going to be a 3-horse race, and I expect all 3 teams to lead the division at some point this year. So it's going to be a fun division to watch. It's going to come down to the wire, and I'm so sorry, but yes, it's the Braves. Who do I think the MVP is? It's tough to not go Soto, right? However, he's been in this division before, right? So this isn't new. Obviously, he was a little younger. But I'm with you. I think his power numbers drop a good bit. He doesn't have that short fence anymore. Yes, Lindor's there. Yes, Pete's there too. So he has protection to get and see pitches. But I still think he's the one that people are going to want to see the least. So those other guys, I think Lindor's numbers are going to be amazing again. And I think Pete might have more opportunity to get some pop because they'll have to pitch to him. So I think it'll be interesting. I think if I'm being honest, if things play out the way I think they do, I think we're looking at Braves, Mets, Phillies. But you could tell me any order of those 3, and I'll be like, okay, that makes sense, right? So that's kind of where we're at. So Soto's my top dog. Braves are the winners. The Marlins. I'm so used to saying the Mets. The Marlins are the bottom feeders. Okay, so that's where we stand.
That's where we stand right now.
Now let's get out of our echo chamber and let's see what everyone else is
None of this
thinking.
we shit. Let's get you out of your said echo chamber.
You are. Look, listen. I know that you're a Mariners fan. I get it. But your entire friend group are Philly assholes.
That's not true.
Just playing.
There's more Yankees
but you
fans.
grew up
They're split. I grew up in northeastern Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania, so you are very heavily Philly influenced. Your dad's a big Phillies guy.
He is.
Okay, so I'm just saying you have your own echo chamber. That's all I'm saying. Let's listen to everybody else, though. We're gonna go down the list alphabetically. Let's start with the Braves. Chris, who do we have for the Braves?
So for the Braves, we've got Lindsay Crosby. He's at Crosby Baseball, all one word. He is, I wish I had this better. I didn't do this. I'm sorry, Lindsay. Lindsay Crosby is the host of Braves Today, First Pitch, which is daily MLB recap. He does some college baseball as well for Auburn. So Lindsay Crosby, take us away.
Hit it. The key to the 2025 Atlanta Braves is just going to be getting back to who they are now that they're healthy. I'm Lindsay Crosby, the Braves Today podcast, excited to bring you a quick preview of what the Atlanta Braves season should look like. And really, it comes down to you have a lot of really good players. You just need them to be healthy. The Atlanta Braves last year, if I remember this right, were the first team in baseball history to lose 4 opening day starters and still make the postseason. Now, they didn't go very far. They lost in 2 games to the Padres and went home. But Atlanta just dealt with so many injuries, whether it was Spencer Strider going down with an elbow injury that needed season-ending surgery, whether it was Ronald Acuna Jr. tearing the other ACL and the other knee and going down. They lost Austin Riley late. They lost Ozzie Albies late. He came back, but wasn't the same, was not able to switch hit and things like that. They lost Sean Murphy for almost 2 months to start the year. The Atlanta Braves actually only had 6 innings of their of their opening day lineup all together at the same time. And so because of that, they really just had to play from behind the entire season. The goal for this year is that things should be different. Now, I say that they're already going to be without some guys on opening day. Ronald Acuna Jr. isn't due back until probably the 1st of May. Spencer Strider's due back sometime in April. We don't know when. Sean Murphy's going to miss 3 to 5 weeks with a broken rib. But they went out, signed Jurickson Profar to take over in left field. So they have just about every starting position locked up right now, halfway through spring. There's no real questions on this team other than which pitchers are going to be in the back of the rotation until Spencer Strider comes back. It's a very enviable place to be. And honestly, this roster, as currently constructed, if they stay healthy, they're still one of the top teams in all of baseball. It's just that's the big question. Are they going to stay healthy? We'll see what happens. And hopefully we can get back together at the end of the year to talk about the Atlanta Braves winning the World Series.
Hit it.
Lindsay, thank you so much for your input there. It's hard to argue against his points, right? Obviously, it's a very good team that just got hit so hard by the injury bug that it's hard not to be scared of it, right? But if they're all there and everything is clicking, it's going to be a good team. We've got depth. We've got young players that I think can continue to be really strong. One of the things that I think if we do right is pitching. Like if our pitching staff holds up, I do believe we will be the team to beat, and it won't even be much of a discussion. But I don't expect that to be the case. You know what I mean? So it's tough. Like I want to be as optimistic as I was last year, but now I'm so afraid to be that optimistic because of how badly it went. Yes, we made the playoffs, but my God, did we limp into the playoffs and then we just got our teeth kicked in by the Padres, right? It wasn't even close. So I like making the playoffs, but I like making the playoffs and being a team that's good. Like no one likes going to the playoffs and getting their teeth shoved. Like it's just fair. It's not a fun way to experience it. As a Braves fan, we made the playoffs every year for like 13 years and only really made it serious a few times, right? So that's not fun. That's not a fun way to go to the playoffs. You don't want it to be expected and then also expect to get trounced immediately. So I want us to be good late. And so to do that, like we've talked about, you've got to have the studs at the top. So if Sale and Mr. Mustache can stay healthy at the right time, then I'm going to be very excited about what this team can be. But if they can't, and none of those other guys in the pitching rotation, like Lopez or the other younger guys, if they don't peak or get better so that they could fill those slots, then we're going to have problems again. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like I think the Braves are looming and are overlooked because of what happened last year, and people are forgetting the fact that we are not that far removed from being World Series champions and not that far removed from being the most potent offense statistically you've seen. So anyways, I'll stop talking about the Braves. Chris, what you got?
No, I mean, it was definitely a down year in the way of not having all of the star power. Your team still finished with, or the Braves, your team, 89 wins, which is
very
playoff
good
caliber, right? It got you in. You did enough. But they are the poster child of what if, right? Or injuries or staying healthy, however you want to phrase that. And now, again, we're going to assume that when you can't assume with this team, I guess, is the way I want to put it. I feel like I'm choppy here, but it's okay. Acuna is back in May. Well, all right. What Acuna do we get?
Yep.
Are we getting 40-40 Ronald Acuna? Probably not. And do you ever get 40-40 Ronald Acuna? We don't know. But I'm speaking more future-wise. But even for this year, if he's not going to be back till around May, okay, you get him back in what role? He has to play the outfield because Marcell Ozuna is a waste anywhere else besides DH.
Yep.
So is he going to be? Are you going to ask him to do too much too soon and ruin whatever is going on? I would assume they're taking the cautious approach with the superstar who's still on the younger end of his career. And I'm not saying I don't want him to come back. I'm just saying that you have to be weary of what's going to happen. And the same goes for Spencer Strider. They are your two studs. They're your two best players. And Strider, supposedly back in April, we're advanced enough in the world of arm injuries that usually you can come back. And I don't know, I guess, what stage he's at in terms of if they're just going to be like, okay, we got 5. Great. What is it? What is his innings limit? Is there an innings limit? How do we monitor that throughout the season? So while you're super excited to get him back, and you should be, as you approach the most important time of the year, where do I see him?
Yep.
And how do we make this fit? On the other side, you're expecting, needing, desiring repeat performances from what I feel are unlikely candidates. Reynaldo Lopez being public enemy number 1.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, he had a hell of a year last year.
He was incredible.
Yeah, he was incredible.
But he's not that. And if he is, you shut me up. You got me.
Okay.
You did well.
Yep.
But I don't think he's going to give you, he was like 5+ WAR last year.
Yeah, I mean, he was Cy Young candidate.
He was a 5.1 WAR. He had under a 2 ERA in 25 starts.
Yeah, he was
You
awesome.
are not getting,
Yeah.
he had 1.99, but he was under 2.
That's under 2.
Yeah, agreed.
That fucking counts.
No, agree. I was saying it's under 2. You're not getting that out of him again. I don't believe that for a second,
Okay.
and I'm happy to be proven wrong. Because
Me too.
if so, then you're fine. I think Chris Sale's still one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. Does he provide you with another crazy type of season like that?
No
I'm going
way.
to say no.
Yeah.
But
But if he's a third of that guy,
but you would expect whatever it is you're getting out of Strider to make up for that. I think that's an even trade. I think we're okay there. There are a lot of big talks about Spencer Schwellenbeck and how good he's perceived. He pitched very well in his time last year, but my take is year 2 of the pitcher is when you kind of everybody's got the tape. You're able to get
word out
studied.
of spring training is
You're not
taking the next
so
step.
That's
Yeah.
what, you're not surprising anybody anymore. But if he is that guy, well, he more than makes up for the drop that you're going to get from Lopez and potentially Sale. You might not get a drop in Sale, but he's 36 years old. You're going to get
at some point they die.
yeah. And AJ Smith-Shawver, he's going to have to prove some stuff. He's going to have to come up, give you some innings, probably early in the season,
Agreed.
I would think.
Yep.
But you've got a complete team. I didn't even get to the lineup yet. Olsen plays 162 games every year. I think he's played him for the last 3 seasons.
Yep.
Ozzie Albies, is he healthy? Is he not? If he's healthy, he's top 3 second baseman in baseball,
Absolutely
arguably the first.
Yep.
Austin Riley wasn't healthy last year. Mm-hmm. He comes back. Is he back to 30 home run, Austin Riley? If
Right.
so, you're
Hungry.
in good shape.
Yep.
Michael Harris, I think he was hurt for a little bit of last year.
He was hurt a little last year. Yep. If you say was he hurt last
Yeah,
year,
the answer's
other
probably yes.
than Olsen, the answer is yes.
Yeah, Olsen's played
Yep.
like 162 for the past 3
Yep.
seasons, I think. But Michael Harris, I think he's. I don't know how you guys do the roster construction. He might be at the top of the order at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I would think
he's
so,
probably going to drop down. So if he's your 6, 7, 8, 9 hitter, you're
Oh no.
Yeah, you've got good things,
Absolutely.
right? His
Yep.
speed, all that. Orlando Arcia, I don't know. You know how I feel about him. I think he's perfectly average. I think he's a serviceable Major League Baseball player.
Yep.
I don't think I think last year was the show. He's not really an all-star.
Yeah.
But you'll be fine. We're digging super deep because it's your team.
Trying to find holes.
But-
Yeah.
Outfield-wise, you're fine. You have very platoonable players. Brian De La Cruz and Jared Kelenic. They're going to platoon in whatever way. At least till Acuna comes back. That's probably what you're looking at in terms of a platoon. Who the hell? Oh, and then Profar. Profar's a big deal. Do I think he's going to out? Last year was an outlier for him.
Yeah, he had a very good season last year. Yeah.
So is he the same guy?
No, but he doesn't have to be that level. He just has to be good enough. And here's the deal. The good thing with the Braves lineup is you don't have to carry, like we said with other things.
They're deep. They're deep.
It's deep. Yeah. There's no pressure for you not to perform because the guy
even
behind
without
you will.
Acuna, Ozzie, Riley, Olsen, Profar, Harris. There's 5 or 6 guys
Ozuna.
right there.
Yeah.
Shit. I forgot about Marcell Ozuna.
MVP candidate. Yeah.
He's a piece of shit. He was
I
never-
don't disagree, but he hits the ball a lot and
Sure,
hard and far.
That's fine. But I'm happy to omit him anytime that I possibly
That's
can.
fair.
However, so right there, without Ronald Acuna, without the platoon guys in Arcia, you're 6 or 7 deep.
Yep.
You've got a good team.
Yes.
I'm not saying you can't contend. I think the question marks are warranted based on injuries, and this is one I want to revisit midseason and be like, okay, we're healthy. Well, shit. Here come the Braves. Or they're not healthy. Well, they're going to finish 3rd, 4th, maybe not even make the playoffs.
I think if you listen to the AL East episode, you're going to hear us say this. You hear someone say it and we'll repeat it. But essentially, this division is going to come down to whoever gets hot after the All-Star break.
Yes.
So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and I can't wait to see where we go. I am cautiously optimistic. So
yeah.
But anyways, let's move on to the next team. We have the Marlins up now. So Chris, who do we got?
We've got Ely Sussman. He's the founder of FishOnFirst. So just at FishOnFirst. I just tagging the medium. He's also on there, but his at is on FishOnFirst. So you'll find him via FishOnFirst. Let's see what he's got to say. Enlighten me on the Marlins.
Let's go.
Hit it.
This is Ely Sussman from FishOnFirst, previewing the 2025 Miami Marlins. Any way you slice it, they are coming off one of the worst seasons in franchise history and one of the most awkward seasons they've ever had. You had a manager that didn't want to be there anymore. You had players that were looking for a way out almost immediately when the season went in the toilet. And you had a new president of baseball operations in Peter Bendix that wasn't really interested in retaining those players anyway. Over the course of the 2024 season, he totally overhauled the roster. They set a major league record for using 70 different players. The team lost 100 games, and it felt like more, honestly, at certain times. And for all their suffering, they only get the number 7 overall pick in the upcoming MLB draft. The roster moving forward, a lot of anonymous players with limited service time. One obvious exception to that, Sandy Alcantara, returning from Tommy John surgery, the former NL Cy Young Award winner. He always sets high expectations for himself. The early indications are that he is physically fully back to what he used to be. Marlins fans have been through this before, that when they have a star player during a cycle where the team is not competing, that player is going to be subject of trade rumors. Realistically, if Sandy is healthy and effective the first half of the season, he's going to be a prime trade candidate that every single contending team is going to be inquiring about. So I think I speak for everybody that we're going to be savoring every single start that Sandy still makes in a Marlins uniform before potentially having to deal with his departure and a huge void that would be created across the organization in the event of a trade. A couple lesser-known guys to highlight here. Ryan Weathers, who was on a promising trajectory in 2024 before having a fluky finger injury, missed half of the season because of that. He put in work during the offseason, came into 2025 throwing even harder than before, showing really promising pitch characteristics that should lead to missing more bats than he ever has before. He's not going to challenge Sandy for the title of staff ace, but if and when Sandy gets traded, and even before that, I mean, he could have the upside of being a dominant left-handed starting pitcher, the likes of the Marlins have not had in many, many years if he lives up to his potential. On the hitting side, I'm looking forward to the debut of Agustin Ramirez. He was acquired in the Jazz Chisholm Jr. trade from the Yankees. Just looks to be a very complete hitter in a way that the Marlins have been sorely lacking in recent years. Even when they made the playoffs in 2023 and in 2020, this has been a team that had very few reliable middle-of-the-order bats to rely on. Agustin Ramirez is showing a whole lot of promise so far, and he'll be pushing for his debut, I think, very early on in the 2025 season. Once he gets up, he should stay up as the team's main DH, in my opinion, for the foreseeable future. This team is going to finish in last place in the National League East. Not much suspense around that. It's also very hard, though, to lose 100 games in a row in consecutive years, even if you're trying to do so. I think this team is going to have better results and overall health from their pitching staff, and that's going to drive some more success here in 2025. In addition to Ramirez, should just be a whole lot of debuts of prospects that were recently acquired from other organizations. So it's going to be a huge test of the player development apparatus to have these guys hit the ground running in the major leagues. But they're going to lose 90 to 95 games. And ideally, he could do so and somehow land through lottery luck a higher pick in the draft than they did in the 2025 edition. So I think that would be a best case scenario for the team. A plucky spoiler during the second half of the season and put themselves into position to really get their farm system over the top heading into 2026.
Hit it.
All right. Thank you very much, Eli. Again, that was Ely Sussman of FishOnFirst. Definitely enlightening. Definitely needed this Marlins preview to get a good idea of what's going on. So let's start with what we may have already known. Sandy is back, right?
Yep.
Sandy Alcantara is back. It's writing on the wall. Enjoy him while you can, Fish fans. He presumably is going to be gone. Hopefully you get him until the trade deadline. But if these pitching injuries continue to mount up across the league, you might not be having him very much longer. You might lose him sooner rather than later. However, in spring training thus far, I don't care about it. However, I will care when a guy's coming back from injury and hitting numbers that we want him to hit, right? So his velocity's there. Is he Cy Young? I don't know. Cy Young caliber, I'm not sure. But still top pitcher and one of the best pitchers in the league.
We're operating under the assumption that he'll have everything back, which he hasn't proven yet. So
yeah.
So enjoy it while it lasts if he's a stud. If he comes back and he's ho-hum, then you might
somebody
keep
will
him.
trade for
That's,
it. No,
I guess that's fair.
He's gone.
Yeah, he'll be a piece somewhere, even if he's not.
Yeah, like people
Cy
will
Young
reach
level.
out.
Yeah.
They might not get everything that they want for him, right? His asking prices
Probably
but
astronomical.
They need him to pitch better to get more. They'll still be able to get rid of him. Other pitchers, they're excited about Ryan Weathers. You heard Eli talk about him a little bit. Lefty, lost a ton of weight. We'll see. He's still young, still ton of potential there. You talk about youth. I mean, they have it in spades, right?
Yeah.
Edward Cabrera, he's one of the older ones. Max Meyer, we're still waiting on him to break out. I'm excited to see Yuri Perez come back. He's out for a while. I don't know when he'll come back. It might be mid-season type of deal. But he's 22 years old. They are not going to rush him. So expect super strict limits. So you'll get a shell of him. Next year will be the year that he presumably takes over as the ace and moves forward. As far as the rest of the team, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
I know I do like Connor Norby. I think that he can produce some power down there. Xavier Edwards had a nice little season for himself. And then from there, it's just a lot of guys. Kyle Stowers, another Orioles guy. I'm going off this list. Jesus Sanchez, he'll be traded somewhere. Otto Lopez played better than... I'm naming guys. You're looking at me like, who the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, there are a bunch of new names.
But that's really what we're looking at. I think Norby, Xavier Edwards, they have a decent, contingent of like okay players, but they're the Marlins. Are they going to lose 100 games? It's going to be close. Maybe they lose less because of Sandy, but I don't expect either way. Sandy's not going to be there all year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's tough to see them. And to Eli's credit, he also said this is the bottom dwellers of this division, and
yes.
He's correct. How long are they going to be in rebuild mode? I don't know. I feel like they've been in that mode for years. Although they did make the playoffs in 2023, which is not that long ago. So it's very weird to see the Marlins kind of their peak and valleys. But right now, with the other three teams being just like absolute studs, they're miles away from that. So, not anything new here. Like you covered a lot of it. So did Eli. It's tough to be excited about this team. I think the only thing you can get excited about is if all of this new blood starts to show up and play, and you guys start turning into, dare I say, the Tampa Bay Rays.
No,
which they won't,
absolutely
right?
Not.
So that's a tough thing to bet on, but that's the only potential they have.
No,
like, that's
they're years away because I don't even think they have a top.
I don't even know who their top prospect is. Yeah, I mean,
I don't think they have anything tops
like if we were talking about this farm system being the best in baseball, that's a different conversation.
Yeah, they're far from it.
But they're not even close to that, which is so wild to think. A team like this that feels like they're always selling doesn't have a better farm system, but it is what it is. Marlins don't look like they have a lot of hope, especially after last year. Best case scenario is they lose 80 games, and that's best case.
You're putting them at 500?
Oh, I'm so sorry. No, 90 games.
Okay.
The best case is they lose in the 90s, but there's a really good chance they're going to be in that 100 range again. So, all right, let's move on to the new look Mets. Who do we have over there?
They are the New York Mets, sir.
They have Soto. It's a new look.
Okay. New look, New York Mets. How about that? We've got 2 entries for this one. We've got our friend Tyler Thompson. He's at T_squared11 on Instagram. And our old pal Clem from Barstool. He is at the Clem Report. Let's go.
Hit it.
Hey, Chris and Andrew, Tyler Thompson here, lifelong New York Mets fan, here to give a brief preview of the 2025 New York Mets. Obviously a great offseason, acquired Juan Soto, paid a lot of money over a lot of years for him. We'll see if that pans out. If we get 2 or 3 World Series over that 15 years, I'll be extremely excited. Also acquired Jose Siri from the Rays, great center fielder, great defensive center fielder, decent bat. I like the addition. As far as the other position players go, still Brandon Nimmo as one of our outfielders, Siri at center field, Soto in the other corner. Got Pete Alonso back at first base, Jeff McNeil at second base, Francisco Lindor at shortstop, Vientos at third again after a great breakout year last year, and then Francisco Alvarez back behind the plate. As far as starting pitching goes, it's another story. Been hit with injuries, Manaya's down, Montas is down for even longer. So right now, lineup's looking like Clay Holmes, who we're not even really sure is a starter, as our opening day starter, Senga as number 2, our only lefty starter, Peterson is number 3, Blackburn as number 4, number 5 right now with the injuries. Probably looking like Tyler McGill or another arm out of spring training to start the season until we get Manaya or Montas back. This lineup's going to be dangerous. You got Lindor leading off, Soto in the number 2 spot, then either Pete Alonso or Mark Vientos or Nimmo in that 3 spot, and then one of the other 2 in the 4 spot. It's going to be a dangerous top of the lineup for the New York Mets. Expectations for this season, I'd say World Series or bust, but when you look at what the Dodgers have on their team, really, the bottom expectation has to be to get to the NLCS with this team and the amount we're paying for this team and the amount of luxury tax Uncle Stevie's paying for this team. I'd like to say we're going to win the World Series, but unless we get another starter or 2, I'm not sure we're going to be able to win a World Series with this pitching staff as it is currently constructed. Right now, it's looking like we're just going to have to outscore teams unless the pitching staff exceeds expectations, but you never know. It's spring. Hope springs eternal every spring for every baseball fan. Can't wait to hear what you guys do this season, and let's go Mets.
Hit it.
Hey guys, it's Clem from Barstool Sports here, giving my 2025 New York Mets preview. What a difference a year makes. The vibes right now compared to this time last year could not be more opposite. Last year, they were coming off of that disappointing 2023 season. All the stuff with Verlander and Scherzer, absolute disaster. And I'll be honest, we could take those vibes all the way to May when the team was terrible. We had players saying we're the worst team in baseball, quitting, all that kind of stuff, throwing gloves into the stands. And then, I'm 42 years old, so I remember the 90s Mets and then everything since. And it might have been the most fun ride I've ever had as a Mets fan. It was a lifetime of memories jammed into a few weeks there at the end in September into October, along with just an absolute gem of a team to root for. So we roll into this season. Oh, yeah, and by the way, we got Juan Soto, biggest contract ever. Took him from the Yankees, which is something I never thought I'd live to see as a Mets fan. The Mets outbidding the Yankees for a guy they want to keep. And now the Yankees fans are basically saying Juan Soto stinks for a myriad of reasons, which kind of makes it better. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Outlook on the season, much better than last year, obviously, for all the reasons I mentioned. Still a tough division, Braves, Phillies are not going to go anywhere. The Nats and the Marlins, I'm sure, will annoy us in little series here and there. But as a fan, you expect playoffs. I had someone say to me, Clem, now that the Mets are, spending money, they got Soto, went off of last year, is a World Series or bust. Listen, the only good thing about playing in the National League with the Dodgers is the Dodgers are the World Series or bust team basically every year for like the next decade, right? As long as the Ohtani deal's going on and Mookie's there and all the guys they're just signing from Japan every other day, it seems. So because of that, it's not World Series or bust, but we're expecting a World Series coming in the future. I don't know how long in the future. The thing everyone's going to talk about is obviously the rotation with, you have Senga and Minaya and, turning Clay Holmes into a starter, and Montas is hurt already. Peterson, will he continue his bounce back from last year where he was awesome off of the hip surgery? So with all that said, I do think the bullpen will be good. I think Stearns is going to start sticking in the Stearns' like strategy of pitching and not really spending for it, which I've heard someone say pitching is becoming a little like running backs, where you can spend for the big guys here and there, but a lot of people don't want to put that money into a position that does get hurt so much, especially when they're, going into their 30s. So because of that, I'm kind of just gonna, in Stearns we trust. Last year proved that if nothing else, nothing about last year made sense for a good chunk of time, and that's why Stearns gets the benefit of the doubt with the pitching. The lineup, looks absolutely incredible. You have Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Vientos, Nimmo. I do think Alvarez is going to be a beast this year. And then it's like Jeff McNeil, who won a batting champion, is like your bottom third of the lineup. Jose Siri could hit bombs. He's fast as hell. Winker's just going to piss everyone off. So I am extremely, to the point where it's like I'm scarily excited, where it's like, oh, I've seen this before as a Mets fan. And then I get chokeslammed through a table because I feel so good. But I'm going to say, let's say it, 98 wins. Who cares? Like at this point, I could just have some fun. 100 wins is a special season. I'd love to say 100, but I'm going to go 98. The 98ers, New York Mets. What a difference a year makes. I hope I don't look like an idiot by the end of the year. At least not for this. I look like an idiot for many other reasons, but hopefully not this.
Hit it.
What it must be like to be a Mets fan. Just all vibes, all excitement. I am a little jealous, if I'm being honest, right? So thank you so much, guys, for your reviews. It's basically the same thing. They're like, hey, we don't expect the World Series because Dodgers exist, but we expect to be in that same conversation, Dodgers or Mets. Both of them said we hope to get some World Series in the next 10, 15 years because of the Soto thing, right? So I like that perspective. Like, okay, maybe not this year, but we expect to be really good and we expect to be a part of the conversation for years to come. Good for them. I hate it. Thanks, I hate it. But they have a lot of great points. This freaking lineup is very good. Like, they are top heavy. Lindor should have been, was an MVP candidate.
Yep.
And if Ohtani didn't exist, he was the MVP, right? So, and I'm interested to see what happens with Alonso if he has the ability to see more pitches, what he does with it. He had a great postseason, right? If he takes that and runs with it this year, that's scary. That's a scary lineup. However, this pitching staff's bad.
Okay.
Like, I just like, no one has proved it on their side long enough, like without problems, right? Now they're all healthy. I just don't feel like this team has an ace. This team has a bunch of 2-3 guys.
Yeah.
But with that lineup, that's all you really need, right?
Yeah.
I guess. If the Mets had a Wheeler or a Strider, I would be terrified of the Mets. I still am. They're a good team. I still think they're the second best team in the division, if not the first or the third, right? But without that de facto ace, I just don't think they're 98 wins. I just don't. I think they can be a 92 win team, 1,000%. 98, I don't know. That's super optimistic. So again, Mets, very good baseball team, going to give us fits all year. I just don't know. They just don't have the pitching to be in the same conversation with the Dodgers. They just don't.
I mean, 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 I mean this lineup is World Series caliber lineup.
I
right?
agree. Yeah, great lineup.
So we're in agreement there. And I also think we're in agreement that the rotation has question marks. Tyler pointed it out. We need to add 1 to 2 starting pitchers, especially with the injuries to Minaya and Montas. I forget the timeline on Minaya. I think it's longer on Montas.
I think it's longer on Montas.
But I think Minaya should be back soon. He was incredible for them last year. The spring, again, don't look too much into spring training, but the early indication of spring training is that Clay Holmes might be legitimate. He's having a good spring thus far. We'll see when he stretches out what that looks like over, a full season. But you are right in that they don't have an ace. They pulled we're just going to compile guys and who could throw. But we have a bunch of 3 starters, and we can make it through a Major League Baseball season because you can, right? When you do that.
With that lineup, yes.
The issue becomes in a 5-7 game series when you are having to line up these guys against a proverbial ace on another squad. What are you running up against, right? Do you have the arms to do that? And their bullpen was good, and I know Clem said, hey, we've got our pitcher coach Stearns and we trust him. He helped us out last year. He got us to the promised land, and maybe it is enough. Maybe David Peterson does step up. Maybe who the hell else? Paul Blackburn does step up again. I don't see it. I think they need to add more than anybody another starter pretty soon. I don't know how. I guess their lineup's going to allow them to tread water way longer than most other teams in the league. So they're going to be in contention. This isn't like we don't know. Yeah. They should be looking right now for guys that they can add at the deadline in terms of starting pitching.
Sandy being a good target.
Who knows if the Marlins will do the in-division thing. We'll see.
Right, that's fair.
But yes, they should be on the phone with the Padres for Dylan Cease.
Yes.
And all of that stuff. So
God, I hope not.
Agreed. But lineup-wise, yeah, it's going to be wild to see what Juan Soto can do for this lineup because Aaron Judge is way different than Pete Alonso, clearly.
Yes, correct.
But what does that do for Francisco Lindor? Does that give
What does that do for Nimmo?
Lindor, already MVP caliber, he's the leadoff guy. So you already don't want him on base. But even more so now because you got Juan Soto behind him. So then, from that perspective, maybe it does become all right, we'll pitch around these 2 guys and we'll try our luck with Alonso.
Yeah.
But once Alonso gets you for 2 or 3 home runs in the series, you're like, well, shit, that didn't work.
Can't do that anymore.
If he does his thing, he could put up 50, right?
No, I agree.
He's
I
not.
agree. Yeah.
He might not, but he very well could.
Yeah.
So he's just not going to hit 330 like Judge is capable of.
Right, yeah.
But Nimmo, they're looking for a bounce back for Jeff McNeil, but they do have some guys waiting in the wings if McNeil doesn't work out. So I think they're okay there. They want the Jeff McNeil of old. Jose Siri, he could just kind of play everywhere, very good defensively. He hits like 212, so nobody really loves that. But Vientos turned into a star in the postseason. So Mark Vientos, where does he hit? Probably 5. I would assume Nimmo's going to be your 4 hitter. And Sterling Marte's still hanging around. I don't know how much he plays. Fangraphs has him listed as a platoon versus lefties with Winker as a platoon versus righties. But all of this to say they've got a good lineup. Their lineup's going to carry them. Their rotation could potentially hinder them a good bit. And I think they're without any more ads, they're solely in a playoff spot in the National League. When they make it, I say when, because Steve Cohen shows that he doesn't give a shit about money and he's going to just go spend it so that the price tag on whoever comes doesn't matter. They'll go get their guy and they'll be right back in arguments of World Series again. I think if they add another star pitcher, ace level caliber, they just need to get into the playoffs and they'll be fine. Screw the bye, screw the first, the home field, whatever. They get in, they'll be trouble because they proved it last year with the lineup.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And now the lineup's better. Yeah.
And Senga might be healthy he was hurt most of the year last year.
Yeah. And we don't know what Senga's going to provide either. There's a good chance Senga could be said ace. I don't think so, but he could be very, very much. Minaya also, they've shown flashes. They haven't shown flashes for a year-long ace type of thing.
Correct.
And what we definitely beat the drum about is you got to have 1-2. Like, you got to have those studs. And if you got to at least have one. You don't have one, you're screwed. Braves, we didn't even have our one. We got our teeth kicked in. The Mets, their lineup looks awesome. They've proven they can make those runs, but they have to get pitching for it to be worth it. So, all right, enough Mets talk. Let's move on to the other team that's not the Braves, Mets, or Phillies. So we've got the Nationals. So
a lot of disrespect.
Look, it's a 3-horse race, and that does not include the Marlins or the Nationals. So who do we have talking for us today?
Nationals, we've got our part-time producer, Doug Irwin.
Let's go.
That's at Doug Irwin, ERWIN _ on X. Let's hear it.
Hit it.
I think 2024 for the Washington Nationals was a success, even though we finished with the same record at 71-91 as we did in 2023. We got to see Dylan Cruz called up, James Wood called up. So, we're going to be looking for big things from them in 2025 to see if they can become some of those early middle of the order bats day in, day out, and cornerstone building pieces for the outfield. Additionally, in the outfield, can Robert Hassel shake some of his injury woes, break through to the bigs, and get some consistent playing time to fill out that outfield? Maybe so. We've got a great fourth outfielder defensively in Jacob Young, who broke through in center last year. Infield's a little bit more of a question. We had some decent signings and moves. We got Nate Lowe from Texas. I think he'll be a solid, if unspectacular, first baseman. Luis Garcia took a step forward at second last year. Third and shortstop, question marks. Certainly CJ Abrams is not a question mark as a player, but he is a question mark at shortstop. He made a lot of errors last year. He's going to need to clean some of that up. I couldn't tell you what third base is going to look like. A lot of options there, none of which are particularly enticing. So going to be interested to see how the rest of spring goes on, what happens there. The rotation, a lot of young guys are going to get starts. We're going to see if our first ever Asian signing as a club, Shinosuke Ogasawara, see if he can contribute anything to the starting rotation. But interested to see which of these young guys rise up to the top and which don't pan out in the rotation. Mike Soroka, hopefully he can prove he's a competent starter, and maybe he gets dealt, to a contender at the deadline. The big player to watch for me is Keibert Ruiz. He took a step back last year after being, signed and kind of promised as our catcher of the future. Really needs to get back to his 2023 form. I think he's capable of doing it. We don't know if there were some underlying injuries or not, but he's my player to watch this season. And then in the bullpen, we're just, I think, looking for some of these guys to have some success and probably get moved to the deadline. So hoping for a step forward in the record, even in a competitive division in 2025, and then hoping that this offseason is the one where the Nats sign that Jason Worth-like player to really kickstart a new window of contention in 2026 and beyond.
Hit it.
All right. Thank you very much, Doug. We've got our fourth. I was trying to think of how to say this. Our fourth place team consensus, Washington Nationals preview out of the way there. No, so there's a lot to be excited for Nationals fans. They have young talent. James Wood, freak of nature, crazy athlete. Who knows where he ends up position-wise, but he's fun to watch. Has power for days. Dylan Cruz, he's going to turn into a very good player. I have very little concern about that. So there's your two, studs
of the future.
And Abrams, talent-wise, he's young. He's only 24. As far as his actual talent, he's there. The whole thing that went down at the end of last year with him at the casino at God knows what hour, I don't know how much that's bleeding into this year. I haven't really heard any super negative news from that. To expect anything other than he's our opening day shortstop. So to keep dwindling it down, there's your core, right? There's your three guys. And from there, they don't have a ton left, right? They brought back Josh Bell. Nathaniel Lowe to play first base. Again, uninspiring, but he's a serviceable major league first baseman. Yeah. So it fills a gap for a little while there. Kyber Ruiz, catcher. They need him to bounce back, as Doug said. Jacob Young had a pretty solid season for them, kind of out of nowhere. And I don't know if I definitely didn't share it with you. There's a picture of him, and he looks jacked. He had close to a 3 WAR last year. I don't know how much of that was defensively, but he had 33 steals. So there's a guy on the base path who can make some noise.
Love some stolen bases.
It has to be mostly fielding or something. His OPS was 648. But anyway, room for improvement on his end too. So you have some guys, you have a few building blocks, but you really want to see the most improvement, the most gain out of Wood, Abrams, Cruz.
Yep.
That happens.
The core,
now we got something. We can make something work there. They brought in Paul DeYoung. Luis Garcia at second base. If he continues to improve, he jumps into that little building block, but I'm not going to put him there yet. I think they signed Ahmed Rosario, who's fine as a backup. Pitching. That's the story of every single team in the league, and very much more so the Nationals. Love Mackenzie Gore. He's their ace.
Yep.
Love him. Josiah Gray, he's out, I think, most, if not all, of this year.
Let's say he's out. Right? Okay.
Yeah, I know that. I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
You know,
you're talking about future. I was like,
another block for the future. You know, Jake Irvin, Mitchell Parker. You know, the typical Soroka deal of we're gonna sign him and hope he does good, and then we'll just trade him. He's still only 27, by the way.
That's crazy to think.
I would have said he was like 31.
He was our ace. What feels like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
yeah. So that's wild.
If he does still have some stuff left in the tank, great. He'll figure it out there, and then they'll ditch him. Trevor Williams had a weird season last year, like surprising.
Yep.
They brought back Kyle Finnegan. He'll be back
into the bullpen.
Finnegan
to me is like their corner piece. Like I'm surprised.
Of the bullpen, yeah.
I'm surprised nobody made a move for him.
So they didn't. I don't know if they didn't try to trade him or nobody wanted him last year, so they didn't get to trade him at the deadline. Then nobody else even considered bringing him in or couldn't come to a deal.
That's
I don't think he signed anything
really well
crazy. He's only like $6 million. So to me, that's worthwhile for at least a high leverage guy. Unless he wanted to be the closer, then that's a different conversation that I guess neither of us are privy to. But same concept, 1-year deal. He's good at the near the deadline. Let's try to trade him. I'm not getting into the rest of the depth of the bullpen. I have no idea what they expect, what I expect, what anybody expects out of Shinosuke Gasawara. How about that? That's pretty good.
Good attempt.
I've been, you know how like when you're a kid and you wait for you're trying to time out how many people until you have to read and you read your sentence or paragraph like 12 times so you don't sound like an idiot. Yeah. So the entire time I've been talking, I've still been looking at that name trying to pronounce it so I didn't screw it up too bad. But who knows what to expect from him? Whether or not they're going to try and sneak him into the rotation at some point, I don't know. I am excited to see if Robert Hassel actually has anything. Been waiting on his name since he was a Padre.
Yeah.
I don't know. But they're going to sit right where they're going to be fourth. I don't think this is means for discussion. We've said this a bunch. They're going to be fourth. The only question is how many wins do they have?
Yeah.
71 was last year. I think they could improve, but 75?
Yeah, but I don't think this is a 500 team.
No.
And definitely because Doug said it multiple times, they're looking to sell. So they're hoping guys perform and they're going to sell off and continue to build what is a good farm system, right?
Correct.
So,
yeah, they've got some guys.
So the Nationals, I mean, again, they're a part of a rebuild, but they have a light at the end of the tunnel with that core, those 3 players you talked about. So I think that the Nationals, this isn't the year. They know it's not their year. So they're just trying to find glimpses of encouragement for the future, which is not always the most fun thing to do, but it can be entertaining during the year when you get a new guy that's called up and go, okay, let's see what this kid has.
Yeah, you know I don't think they have that right this second though, because all those guys are up, and again, they do have some guys that they can bring up at some point.
Well, you think Cruz is gonna stay in the majors?
He did all last year. Once he was up, he was up.
Okay, I guess that's fair.
Yeah, he came up. He played most all of the year.
Oh, did he? I thought it was like half the year.
Sorry, you're right. He played 31 games.
Wood played the entire year.
Yeah,
Cruz did not.
Cruz came up. He played 31 games.
Okay,
so
right. Yeah.
I don't think he had any fluctuation. Once he was
Gotcha.
up, he was up. So
Gotcha.
yes,
Okay.
he's there to stay.
Okay, good. I mean, look, good for the Nationals, good for part-time producer Doug to have things to root for, because it hasn't been that way. So, are they going to irritate other teams in the division? Yes, we're gonna lose multiple series to the Nationals out of nowhere for some god awful reason.
Multiple series.
Yeah, it's so annoying. But they won't. I mean, no, they won't sniff 500. They'll be better than the Marlins, and they're going to build on the future. So good for them. All right, last team, Philadelphia Phillies.
The Philadelphia Phillies. So this is our last one. This is my friend Ryan. His is at noon, Noone, time, Time, 24. That's on X. Let's see what we've got on the Phillies. My division winner as of right this second.
Hit it.
The Phillies come into the 2025 season looking like a familiar squad after a surprisingly quiet offseason. However, it's possible the moves they did make could get them back on track after dropping a disappointing series to the Mets in the NLDS. Max Kepler brings some stability to an outfield that saw 11 players work the grass in 2024, and Jordan Romano brings a veteran presence to their bullpen, an area that was strong last year but became unraveled in the postseason. That could be in part due to the amount of innings they were asked to eat up throughout the year, thanks to Taijuan Walker, who averaged just 4 1/3 per outing, finishing 3-7 with a 7.1 ERA. While not quite as flashy as Crochet, Snell, or Burns, the addition of Jesus Luzardo could put the Phillies in the mix for the best rotation in baseball, especially if he can get back to his 2022 form when he posted a 3.5 ERA and finished with 208 strikeouts. The Phils also expect top prospect Andrew Painter to make a splash once he returns from Tommy John surgery this summer. Of course, they'll need Harper, Turner, and others to play at a high level. And they need to find a way to sustain production, getting away from the boom or bust patterns they've seen over the past 2 seasons. If they can avoid injuries, the Phillies should find themselves in the playoff mix again in 2025. But with a healthy team in Atlanta and the Mets' addition of Juan Soto, there isn't much room for error if they hope to be in the mix for the division title.
Hit it.
Listen, I appreciate that he is not all in on the Phillies winning, right? Because it's so easy to get complacent and thinking your team's going to win. I know I do it. And the Phillies, rightfully so, should feel the same way based off the last 4 years, right? They've been a perennial threat, division winners, playoff busting type of team. But he's right. They've been boom or bust the past couple years too, and bust the worst kind of way in the playoffs, right? That no one wants to see that. This lineup is good. There's no denying that. Is it as good as the Mets? I don't think so. Is it as good as the Braves? I think that there's a conversation to be had that it's not. Now, their strength comes in their pitching. Obviously, their 1-2 punch is arguably the best in the majors. Okay. But their 1-2-3, not so much. Their 1-2-3-4, not so much, right? They're very top heavy. So I agree with him that if they can get that third piece, that this is going to be a different conversation. It's going to be fun to see what happens in this division for sure. But I think the Phillies have the most to lose if any of their studs fall off, go over the hill, whatever that looks like. They're going to have problems, and they're going to have to figure out how to keep up with the arms race that is the NL East. So, again, let me be clear. The Phillies are the team to beat. I'm not saying that they're not, but I am saying that it's going to be an uphill battle for them, to be quite honest. So, what do you think, Chris?
I think that they do indeed have a number 3 pitcher. I think Christopher Sanchez is indeed their number 3 as of right now. I think Ranger bumps down to number 4, and I had to look it up before I, provided that info. But he, I said it earlier. I think it was this podcast at least. But I'm a second year pitcher guy, right? I need to see. Your first year, it's fine. I'm excited. However, I need to see it year 2. Well, his first year was 2023, started 18 games, had a 3.4 ERA, 2.1 WAR. Solid from what you would expect at that point.
Yep.
Last year, 31 starts, 3.32 ERA, good for 3.4 WAR. I think he broke that barrier of, hey, I'm here to stay, and I'm okay with that. So I'm willing to call him their legitimate 3-starter. They still have, what the hell is his name? Ranger Suarez, excuse me. They still have Ranger. He's their 4. And with Luzardo being their 5, yes, there's a lot to be desired still because he hasn't had the seasons that we felt he was capable of the last couple of years in Miami. But he isn't very much removed from a 3.32 ERA over 18 starts. I mean, the year before, 3.58 over 32 starts. You're getting that over your 5-starter throughout a season. Where
that would be great.
Ryan, where Ryan pointed out, their 5-starter was giving them 4 innings of dog shit baseball last year. Ty Walker was not good. And he's going to move to the bullpen, and he'll be the cleanup guy. So it seems. Maybe they spot start him here or there. So I think their rotation gets a bump inadvertently. Even if they don't have that, even if Christopher Sanchez takes a step back, they got better. They made up the ground.
Maybe a couple innings better.
The lineup is good. They have good players. They have Trey Turner. That sounded so fucking stupid the way I just said that. But Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber. Undoubtedly your top 3 there.
Bangers.
Great. Castellanos, getting older. Alec Boehm, can he do it again? The guy wanted to leave Philadelphia a year ago. JT Realmuto, I don't know what to expect out of him right now.
A solid catcher, but who knows from the plate side, yeah.
Yeah, great defensively. One of the best. I heard they're considering putting him in the outfield a little bit. I'm not really sure what the whole point of that is.
Be interesting.
We'll see how that actually goes. Bryson Stott, solid second baseman. They've got depth. They've got names. Brandon Marsh, fine. So I'm willing to see that they might not have the best lineup, but they have the ability to produce. They're not washed.
They're not pushovers. No, not at all.
But to the bigger argument where I don't think they're far off in the lineup, but I think they're well ahead of everybody else pitching wise. I do think they have the best staff in, we'll just say at least the NL
East. I will give you that.
There isn't a doubt there.
I think you're definitely right.
If you take a bigger perspective without diving into all the other teams we need to do in the NL, they're up there. Sans the Dodgers, they're better than the Padres. Like, just trying to think of all the top teams, they're up there. Yeah. They're a top 3 minimum without even going through it in the NL.
I'll give you top 5. I don't know if I'll give you top 3. But so here's the deal. The other thing that we didn't talk about is, and your buddy Ryan alluded to it, they had a really quiet offseason. Like, I'm surprised that the Phillies didn't make any moves that strengthened their team. I mean, I guess they did pick up the pitcher. They picked up
Max Kepler, who
I just feel like there was more opportunity out there, and they just didn't take any of it.
Yeah, I mean, they got Luzardo, and they signed Jordan Romano, who's been off injury, but that kind of replaces Jeff Hoffman a little bit. Yeah. Now, they didn't do anything a ton to replace Carlos Estevez, so that hurts a little bit. But to his point, their Achilles heel come playoff time was the bullpen. The bullpen didn't do what they need to do. I think they're still going to rely on Kerkering to no, Romano might be. I'm looking at FanGraphs. They have this little opening day chart. Kerkering is going to be their setup man, supposedly, with Romano being the closer. We'll see how that all pans out. Kerkering's a little younger. But they didn't make any changes to the bullpen, so maybe it's the strategy that we've mentioned before of they can't be that bad twice, right? Maybe they get better. Maybe we worked on something. So there's a lot going on there, and they've got some guys that are coming up through the system. Andrew Painter is a heralded prospect, got hurt, coming back, so maybe they wean him into the season.
They better,
but he's supposed to be a guy. So there's just another arm coming. They have, unbeknownst to me, I wasn't aware of this, Justin Crawford. That's Carl Crawford's kid, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't know that until like a couple weeks ago. It was wild. But he's years away. But I'm just saying they have guys that could make their way through the system. I think they're getting oldest the fastest.
Agreed.
I think they're aging quickly.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
Trey, Bryce, those aren't.
I mean, even Wheeler's up there in age.
Yep.
And I love Wheeler's, again, at top.
Again, they're all in their prime, but
Yes.
they're
aging.
They're
So
about
they
to
are-
start going off that hill.
So if you don't see them, like they need to make a big move come deadline. For what, I don't know. It feels like it's going to need to be a lineup type guy. But right now, I would be fine being a Phillies fan. I still think, I'll kind of jump a little bit without. I still am going to keep them as first because I think their pitcher could carry them. I think that lineup is good enough to have them there. But it can go sour really quick because it got sour really quick in the postseason.
It did.
And what was it? Wheeler comes, pitches his ass off, and it was the old Jacob deGrom
Look,
treatment.
if your team doesn't perform when your ace is there, then like you're just shooting yourself in the foot. And that's,
and that's not as hurt. That could happen during the regular season, and everybody's fine. But when that happens at the biggest stage, and you didn't, to your point, they didn't really address it.
No.
Right. What was it? They weren't scoring runs because that's probably part of Wheeler's pitching gens. They didn't score a ton of runs.
Correct.
And then the bullpen didn't do everything they needed to do. It's kind of combination of lineup / bullpen.
Yeah.
I'm willing to concede that they have variability as the word. I was looking for a way different word, but
That's fine.
that
That's a
wasn't
good,
what I went with.
one. I love it.
That I can see them not being first. I'm still going to keep them there, but
Yeah. I mean, again, the Phillies are a team I don't want to see in the playoffs because their pitching is so good at the top, right? So they're still a scary team. It is their division to lose still. Okay, so you have not wavered off of, now that we've listened to everybody, you're like, wait, you still think Phillies are one? Do you still think the Marlins are last?
yes,
Okay.
that hasn't changed. 4 is the Nationals. We agreed upon that.
Yep, completely agree. So I am going to I'm going to stay true to, I still think it's Braves, but I do think it's Mets and then the Phillies.
Okay.
But again, you can make the case for any of those three teams, I'd be like, okay, sure.
I'm not going to ask you a win total. We're not doing that. But how many games separate those three teams
From
at
first
the end
to
of the
third,
season? Yeah.
I think a max is 5 games.
Yeah. Last year was last year Phillies won by 6 games.
Yeah.
Mets and Braves are tied.
Yeah, I think 5 games is the max. That's how close this division is going to be.
I think it's going to even be closer than that. I think it's a 4-game all in total. God. And I think the second place is going to be like a 1 or 2.
Yeah, no, I agree, or a half.
Yeah, well,
they have to do a play-in game.
That can't happen.
I know they have to do a play-in game.
No, a half can't happen.
I know, but
they
like
could either tie or be.
But if
first.
they tie, they have to play. They have
Yes.
to play. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Sorry.
I think they did away with that though.
Oh, did they? Interesting.
I don't think there's any more game 163s. I think it's all like it moves down the line. We have to look into that.
Yeah, okay, we'll have to look into it.
Anyway,
Who cares?
I think
It's gonna be
I think
close.
it's very tight. I'm going to put Braves second, Mets third, and I think the Mets still, again, because their lineup mashes, but I do think pitching at
Pitching's
least
a
early
big
on,
question mark, yeah.
I think they start slow and the Braves and Phillies can come out pretty quickly.
Yep.
And again, I'm willing to say either of these teams can be number 1.
So here's how I see it. So Phillies, good pitching staff, lineup, okay.
Yeah, maybe third best lineup.
Mets, great lineup, pitching staff, maybe okay.
Third best rotation.
Braves are good
at both,
right? So they're not top. That's how these teams are set up.
So either way,
Yeah,
they
it's
get
like
a little
the Braves
extra somewhere.
They don't have the best pitching staff. They don't have the best batting lineup, but they don't have the worst of either. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. This season is going to take years off my life. I'm calling it now. So, all right. So everybody, thank you all so much for listening. Do us a favor, go follow and talk to everyone that submitted to us today. Their handles will also be in the show notes.
Yes.
So give them all the love. They're doing us a huge favor. And please stick around and listen to all of our divisional previews. Until then, my name is Andrew.
And I'm Chris.
And this is the Coach's Sons Podcast.